chưa chưa tại chưa tại sao mình nghe là sao cái tao cũng chưa thầy vô trong ghé đây thầy vô tại thầy vô phải là mình đợi thầy vô rồi bạn đi để từng mét
trách liền
cái tự nhiên cái đánh hấp dẫn đi cùng với đi mình yêu những đương mình xong rồi mình ta gọi là nghe ta dẻo người gì đó người nó xin đá cũng sao đá đá như đường nhắm chiếc đâu xuống ra cài sẽ cái nó cũng được
đi sửa cho ba người chưa cái đó là tiếng nghe nó cái lại
sao dạ
thôi hỏi mình
sao chết là
ghé sang đây cái mấy cái là tự pha trắng
dạ miếng còn ta bị áo mang
làm tiếc nữa còn 5 tiếng rồi
áp lực
sẽ đi về
điểm nhập hai buổi luôn quên điểm nhập nó xấu nhất rồi.
another question for the previous unit. We didn't do this question last week, so just your trying to do it that we need to consider. You teach a group of students in a language school. Some in the group perform better than the others, although they took the same placement test and got similar score. Question: what would be the problem, and what would you do? If you look at the language school survey, you see that when the students come to the school, they will check the placement test. And then these students that have a similar scores in the placement test, that's why they are in the same class. But then when you go to the class, you see that some students in the group, they perform better than the others. So what should be the problem and what you are going to do in the future?
trong TikTok đấy chứ
Bên kia
tiếng có rưu không? Tiếng có rưu không? Có rưu không? Sao mày cười bạn? Nói bạn điểm.
Oh, starts to play. They took your pen out and then they go to the class and then you go and take the fish down. It's not, it doesn't happen with each time for a few months and then. That's not say that we fish down was alone. Yeah. That's what it is. It's in size. It does not say that on actually teaching students for some time you realize that. It's like clear, very clearly.
Thế nào này cái chụp hình đây để họ thoát cho mình. Chăm cái điều đúng rồi kìa.
Because they have a lot of classes. So in class, we this is so the feeling
Vậy tôi thấy chừng ngày
that's why we that they like on the student.
Don't go too far. You don't say, really follow your imagination.
I think that the problem is the test is really easy, so the test is easy, so the normal student can do it, and the same that is the better student is also doing this, and so they have the same score.
One possibility. The test itself does not distinguish the better students from the weaker students. Only, for example, only the lowest level of proficiency was measured. So that's why everyone got to high score. What else?
is partly all about the teaching abilities to the student. Maybe some student can follow without teaching lectures with some things. So this make the distinction between. It's not a question about. It's nothing about.
Any other possibilities? Yeah.
The way teacher control the class while testing. So maybe the better student will have the lower student which share the answer together, and so that's it the result one. They have the same score.
Okay. Maybe problems with the test, maybe problem with the proctors. What else? Maybe the test is too easy for them, so all of them got the same score. Or maybe the test is too difficult, so all of them got the same score. Maybe the proctors in the exam, they let the students talk to one another. That's why they got the same score. What else? Any other possibilities?
Um, maybe the test to reflect what is designed to test the student.
What does that mean?
It's like for the place to test, there will be a test. It's all about from people structures or something. It's like on the paper, but then they enter the class. They gotta do something more more overall. It's like getting involved in presentation, something like that. So they can be themselves.
Maybe of the different skills. The placement test is about the written skills, and for the picture size is about the oral skills. What else? Come on. Maybe the teacher is there. Teacher is as you. You teach the group and you are there. Your there means you are wrong. Say that some students are better than the others, actually they are not. But the evaluation of the teacher is wrong. Well, the test is not wrong, then the test is not wrong, so the teachers must be wrong. So the evaluation of the teacher may be wrong. If the evaluation of the teacher is correct, then the test must be wrong. Or if the teacher is correct, the test is also correct. So both of them are not talking about the same thing. Okay, that's it. That is examples for you to have an idea about the issues relevant to testing. We go to the next unit. Unit 2 is also something about instruction. It's going to be standardized testing. We are talking about the paradigms in testing. I mentioned it last week. Of course, not quite sure whether you need any kind of really relevant to paradigm, because as I said before, the paradigms that I'm talking about here is the paradigms testing, which different from the meaning of the word paradigm to concentration. There are two ways to pronounce the word, and paradigm or paradigm. Wow, the paradigm is quite old and many people pronounce it to be paradigm. But it's up to you. We talk about the curve, which is relevant to the testing issue. Then we talk a little bit about the reliability. Okay. In testing, we have two paradigms. Well, just like in research, we have paradigms. What are the paradigms in testing? When we talk about testing paradigms, we talk about very much about the purpose of testing. The first one is for norm reference, and the second one is for criterion reference. It's different from the work paradigm in research, where we work on a two paradigms. First one is constructivist, and the other one is behaviorist. So here we look at norm reference and criterion reference. Norm comes from the word normal. Criterion, set of criteria. So if we do a test based on the the normalization, and then that one is called norm reference. If we have a test, we base the test on the criterion, and that one is called criterion reference test. That's not mean anything. It's the same. No, what is norm reference? Norm reference is based on normalization. That's not mean. Okay, we go into details. So what is norm reference testing on normalization? The concept say norm means normative outcome. What is normative outcome? Well, we will look at that later on. Now just keep the name, even though maybe the name means nothing to you. The purpose of norm reference testing is to compare the scores of individuals against one another. So we do a test to see who is better than who. If we do that test, then that one is called norm reference test. We do the test to see who has a higher scores, who has lower scores, and then we do the test so that we can choose the better candidates. It's like in the interview for a job in a company. So they receive, for example, 10 applicants applying for the same job, and then they give them the test. So it does not matter how many scores they are going to get. It is important about who gets the highest score. And those who get the highest score will be selected. Also, that one is called norm reference test, which is opposite to criterion reference testing. Criterion reference testing is relevant to a teaching context, and we do the test to compare the performance of individuals against a set of criteria, not to compare the scores of the learners against one another. And that would be able to help us to decide if the learners achieve pre-specified criteria or standard. And normally we do it to evaluate the training quality. Let's say if you teach students the A1 level, if you teach them A1 level towards the end of the course, you give them the exam to see whether all of them are at the A1 level. So that one is to compare the students' performance against a set of criteria, set level. So here you have a level A1 and you see whether they pass A1. That one is called criterion reference testing. So for example, if you finish this course, you are going to have an exam, and that exam is not to compare who is better than who. That exam is to see, is to compare your performance against a set of left criteria in a level. Whether you can do this, you can do that, you can do that. It's not about who is better than who. We still have the word normative approach over there, and I will look at that. Question. This is the test that employ the non-reference testing paradigm and those that employ the criterion reference testing paradigm. Very simple. Identify the standards of the English language speaking competence for the interview. Probably we use this later. You answer the first question first. Simple, anyone? The test would use the non-reference testing paradigm, and the test would use criterion reference paradigm. Yeah.
Using the non-reference testing paradigm like multiple choice, blank,
Down, later on. Paradigm, testing paradigm is about the purpose of the test. It's not about the type of questions per test. We look at the purpose of the test, you will be able to know if it is non-reference or criterion reference. Anyone? Yeah. Your university entrance exam, is it non-reference? Yes or no? Or is it criteria reference? The university entrance examination in Vietnam, do we have such an exam? Yes or no? Is there a university entrance examination in Vietnam? Really? You don't even know what we did. Who says that there is an entrance examination to the University of Vietnam? What is the exam called? Hmm? What is the exam called in Vietnam for the university? You are not in Vietnam. You come from the sky. The knowledge is never in your mind.
Tại vì hay
The knowledge is, your knowledge is always in the cloud. High school graduation examination. That's high school graduation examination. It's not university entrance examination, no. You don't have to accept this. But people in Vietnam, they use the scores from the high school graduation examination or the university entrance. But there's no university entrance examination in Vietnam now. You seem to be Vietnamese.
từ sao
So the high school graduation examination, is it non-reference or criterion reference? Non-reference. Let me say, people don't understand it, you know, just say. No. Reference. Get the idea? So for example, in an exam, there are 100 questions, and then 50 questions there, 50 questions there are to check if the students can meet the minimum level of the knowledge for a high school graduate. And the other 50 questions are to test who is better than who. And then finally it becomes a paid audit. All right, anything else? Other tests that you can tell?
I can name the Olympiad competition, the excellent student contest, and other kinds of academic contests.
So what can you say?
Like the talent.
What paradigm is that?
That is the non-reference testing paradigm.
Okay.
The way I say the
Next one.
for the next one, I have the theory and reference testing with step, chalkboard, with standardized test of English community, and the end of
All the tests that you take in the university after taking a course can be midterm, final, exam, they are all criterion factors. All the standardized tests, TOEFL, IBK, IELTS, they are all criterion factors. All right, anything else? Identify the standards of the English language speaking competence or the intermediate level and advanced level. Well, the question is very simple. It's for you to understand the differences in terms of levels. So whatever you know, here the question is only about the speaking English language speaking skills, and you need to show the differences between the two levels. Yeah. So for speaking competence, for English speaking competence, for example, if it is the intermediate level, people can do what? In the advanced level, people can do what?
Tôi đưa 2 câu hỏi luôn á.
Now, 560 unit. Curve. This curve is bad, so we do not talk about that anymore. It's not about the test itself. It is about the administration of the test. So, when you go to this one, right, it's a kind of two sample analysis, but not really two. But you have this one. 2023 and 2024, they quite similar. What kind of what conclusion?
What conclusion that you can make?
Câu hỏi cũ. Sao vậy?
Thì từ từ để coi đủ không?
Tại sao không nhấn vào màn hình?
Hả?
Sao không nhấn vào màn hình? Xài chuột cho
Cái gì mẹ?
cái này, nó có tiền.
Không, không biết.
Okay, one. If you compare this one, this curve to this curve. This curve to the curve that I showed you before, which one is better? This is 2023. You compare to the one in 2020. 2020 and 2023. You look at the two curves, which one is better? Better means, of course, the curve is the scores of the test, right? So the score of the test is about the test. So which test is better? The 2020 is better. Why?
They are at different
So this one is the questions are not written levels.
at on the level eight. It's not more it's not like kind of stuff. Um, it's not clear enough to evaluate the from level eight to level seven.
So for example, here, you say the questions over here are
Not difficult enough to get level.
so they are here or what? They are here.
I have two observations. First is that it the result is covered well because almost all the student is above of the 1 mark. Second thing is that there is a natural proceed in the range from 5 to 9. Indicate that there may be some bias or some error in the test itself.
What does that mean? What is the bias? What is the error? It's a problem. The problem is that it has problem. Okay. The first program that you said is not a problem. You said that what very few students get things over here, right? What's your problem? This is remember this is a material reference test to see whether the child can pass high school or not. So it is a reference criterion. So this is criterion, so it's criterion reference test. And when it is a criterion reference test, if all the students can do well, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If the student they study properly, they should pass the exam. So if they study properly, they all got, if all of them got from 5 and more than 5, that's fine, that's no problem with the test. Because it is criterion reference. So it is only problematic when it comes to the purpose of norm reference. Okay. If it is criterion reference, there's no problem with that, even though there are central tendencies, 2 or 3 central tendencies, there's no problem with that. Again, criterion means if they can, if for example, they can know about tenses, then they can all get the maximum points for tenses. That's why they get high school. That's no problem. But it is only a problem when the test is for the test is for selection, means to comparing who is better than who. When it comes to norm reference, it becomes a problem. But if it is criterion reference, it has no problem. Okay. Now we go to the situations where it is a non-reference. If it is non-reference, then what's wrong? Why is wrong? In non-reference, we look at the normal distribution, right? And when we look at the normal distribution, we should be able to tell the probability of achieving a score. So in here, if here the probabilities of achieving a 7 in here, if the probabilities of achieving a 7 is 20%, for example, and then the probabilities of achieving a 9 must be less than 20. But it is not. And when it is not, that means that these questions, they are what? At the same level of difficulty. When they are at the same level of difficulty, they have the same probability of achieving. You get the idea? So if it is a very difficult, and then the probabilities of achieving that score must be 2%. So there is only 2% of probability of achieving that score. And if it is a lower score, the lower score must be a higher level of probability. But here, the scores over here they are at the same level of probability. And when they have the same level of probability, that is the same level of difficulty. Okay? In other words, the questions over here, they are not different from each other in terms of difficulty level. And that's why the test is bad. again, it's bad when we look at it from the perspective of non-reference paradigm. If it is criterion reference paradigm, there's no. So you can see that over here, a group of questions. That should be a group of questions which are at the same level here. All the questions from that group maybe around, if it is 50 questions, so maybe you see it is what from 7 to 8.6, right? 7 to 8.6, 7 to 9. 7 to 9 maybe accounted well, 7 to 9. So that's 2 points. 2 points maybe 20 questions. 15 to 20 questions. So there are 15 to 20 questions at the same level. Now, question for you. You conduct a test after teaching a course, and the course of the students are 10, 40 students get 20 students get a 9, 15 get a 9, 10 get a 7, 10 get a 6, 5 get a 5. What can you learn from this result?
Số có điểm là đúng rồi, 40 đơn phần trăm đó có rất nhiều đứa rồi cái bài này hay vậy đó tức là cái bài này nó không thể phản ánh được chính số của học sinh cái thứ nhất số môn. Và nếu mà nhìn vào cái số mà học sinh đạt được 5 điểm, những cái con số này là nó khá là ít. Thì chứng tỏ là là đối với cái bài test này á, là hầu như những đứa mà học sinh yếu và trung bình thì phải làm số lượng lớn những học sinh yếu và trung bình vẫn làm được. Thì trong tổng số đó thì có một nhóm rất là ít là chỉ khoảng 5% thôi làm không được, tức là làm được điểm 5 điểm, đúng không?
Có điểm 4 luôn.
Còn nếu mà nói về cái khóa học á, thì cái khóa học này là học hiệu quả. Tại vì tại sao dạy xong rồi thì phá rồi thì rất là nhiều đứa đạt được điểm cao nè, học này là học hiệu quả.
Nhưng trong tương lai nếu ta muốn xếp hạng tụi nó thì ta phải cho default hơn.
Let's go. Ừ. Bài kiểm tra chưa phong tỏa được năng lượng.
Nhưng mà ý là trong trường hợp non reference.
Nhưng mà tức mà nói chứ bài kiểm tra này vẫn fail to distinguish the level the ừ. Không biết nữa.
Rồi. Thì nó có đánh giá.
Để con không có làm lần.
Sáng.
Ôi, sáng được giỏi rồi. Bị hay
Cô thấy vậy. Bạn. Phải chụp ổn cái này nhất. Em mình đánh máy thử nha. Cái này nó phải được lên.
mồ. Còn phải nói chung là to hay thì tôi sẽ đem theo nó.
Đây cho luôn nha.
Không,
Ủa nó không cho tôi.
nhưng mà tôi cho người khác lộn, tôi mất rồi.
Khác luôn.
Mất rồi.
Ủa sao mất? Tự nhiên cái mất.
Thì mất.
Anything that you can learn from it?
I think I conducted a successful course that in the future I plan to conduct criteria reference test. But I have to make the step more difficult. Sorry, for the non-text, for the non-reference test. If in the future, if I want to like that, I will make the text more difficult. I would like to evaluate my student ability.
No, that's is to compare the students against one another.
With that is I think and so that almost with the standard of the learning from the course. Also, um, if the
Gives us a more students success with other people.
but it's not like a successful, but some parts even clear that we have the book. Um, somehow like that.
How high is it now?
Um, so all of the students, but to the learning to the learning course is so that it was it is a successful course and further it is uh the going to be easily the course is not easily. I think the knowledge of the course is just a basic one. One
And you know the knowledge also is interesting.
because it's only large percentage of students can get high school. So I think knowledge knowledge from this school is just basic like one. Huh? Well, I see that the curve is.
So when students have a high score, when students have a high score, and then the uh, the, the course is simple. We have a lot of students here, they get 10, and they get 6, get 7 there. In here, there's nothing about the lesson. How can you know about the lesson?
The problem is I think about test. Test is not challenging because it lacks of high level questions. So the number of students in 10 marks are very large. So um, we can improve this step by giving more challenging questions so that the number of students have highest marks can lower.
Why do we need to have a more challenging question?
Because I think that the test is really easy for the better students, so they can do the test easily.
This is a test after the course. And then, so the test must be materials. What people who students? When you teach a course and you have the materials relevant test, that means you can only test what you have knowledge. You cannot test what you have not knowledge. Why do you want to make it more challenging for the students? What is the, where are those challenging criteria from? You have a course, and that course have a set of criteria. And for each criteria, you have the standard, means the level of performance. Whether they can do this, whether they can do that, whether they can do that. Why do you want to give them more challenging questions? Why? Do you not see the problems at all? What is the problem?
Và để nó xem nó độc lắm. Đôi criteria test tức là có sự theo từng cái mức điểm luôn, chứ không phải là vấn đề mà điểm nhiều mà cái điểm đó thì cái độ điểm khá là và điểm 7 điểm 6 100 cho nên là cái việc số lượng học sinh đạt 66 nhiều thì nó ngang ngay cho nên không điểm được và đứa nào nó được trường cao hơn đứa nào, tức là điều này tại vì nó ngang ngang nhau thì cái 10 đó là một cái số 10 điểm này nó tại vì nó 10 điểm là nó đạt 10 điểm thì có nghĩa là cái này thì cái mức độ có không đủ là để vào vận dụng thực vai đúng không, thì nói chung là nó không được thách thức cho học sinh, nói chung là nó không đủ thách thức để học sinh.
Cái đó giống như Duyên nói hồi nãy không?
Thì cái cuối cùng đó, cái số 10 á 10 điểm là cái trang mà Duyên cần. Nếu mình nhìn sâu hơn cái 9 cái 8 cái 6 cái 7 chưa có này đâu.
After looking a lot of curve, have you actually worked on the curve? Or you don't care about it? We were talking about curves and the meanings of the curve. And now you don't care about the curves. What are you doing?
Sẽ phong nó là một khóa học thành công mà. Ê, nhưng mà nếu mà thành công thì đâu có nhiều điểm thấp nè, cũng có điểm thấp. Không, cũng nhưng mà cũng nhiều điểm nhiều.
Well, I think based on the results here, if it is a no reference test, so it is
Yes, now it's look at this. Look at all. Oh, this Oh,
Em có thể nói là sau những cái này đó là con chuyện hiện sao trong việc là
it is a horizontal inside you cannot know with the whole is possible. But it is not. There are serious of what number 5 and 10. What is all serious past the cause? Only number of serious so what is it called?
cái vấn đề thì con chỉ là vấn đề
cái lương đó thì đặt rất là
hả
rất là solution
Sash.
That's a physical the level, like group starts between 7 to 8 85 students, from 8 to 9 85 students, but from 9 to 20 students. So is that the problem with the difficulty level? So what? Is it really
Anyone can yes.
From 5 6 is 5 student difference. So in 5 4 you get 5 students. 6 and students, so it's 5. From 7 to 8 you get plus 5 again. From 8 to 9 you get plus 5 plus 5. But from 9 to 10 is 20 to 40 is plus 20, which is a very big increase from the previous one. That's one idea.
So what's wrong?
I do not believe all 40 students are equal level. I believe some of these 40 students are worse than the others, these are better than the others, and so this jump we I believe it depicts that they are way too many these to get school.
trong
chỉ ra xong nó mình đắp ra thầy thêm Cái đó là mảng ra lần này nó thêm lấy cái nữa sao như vậy á đúng thì mảng là nó cũng giống như là tương tự về số lượng thêm cái nữa biết cách tôi nói tôi hiểu chứ chỗ nào mà tôi bị ý so the problem here is you can see the number of students, the 6 score and 7 score, which is the same. And the number of students, the 9 score is the same. So show that this is not distinguished. This test one result is not a small round. But then in this situation, we see that the students, the scores over here, the curve is going up. It does not form a curve, which is not real. If it is a test, I mean a normal test, the scores must be distributed in a curve. It can positively negate skill, not negatively skill, whatever it is. But it must be a curve. And here there's no curve. So what is the problem? Problem is very much about the administration. A test can have even two central tendencies. We can still explain the problem. But then if a test score does not form a curve, it is unlikely to be the problem with the test. So it is very much with the administration of the test. That is the first conclusion that we can make. If there is no problem with the administration of the test, it is very likely that the number the number of the questions for the criteria that most of the students can do is a lot. And the number of questions for the criteria which most of the students cannot do is very, very limited. Get the idea? For example, in the criteria, there are questions about vocab, questions about grammar. And grammar is something that all students can do. And vocab is something that only a few students can do. So what happens is that all students can get almost the maximum score. Only a few students who can get only need to answer one or two questions correctly and they get the maximum score. Some other students they have a probability of being lucky. They just answer the question randomly because it is only 2-3 questions. And that they just answer the question correctly randomly. And that's why we have more students with higher score than students with lower. But very likely, in this situation, very likely it is the problem of the test administration. The students here, why? Maybe these students what? They have a private class with the teacher. Student. And then these classes, they are real students, real performance. And here, not that. Recently, very viral story. The teacher in video. Very it goes viral. The teacher changes the standards, the students in their plan. We all have, because those students that didn't have a so you say if you give them a test and you have the score distribution like that, look at what you have done with the students. Okay, testing the test. What it means is that we need to check to see whether the test is good or not. That's what it's called, testing it. To be able to understand the test, we have uh, two aspects, two principles. The first one is called cognitive index, and the second one is called language or non-language method. They are very basic criteria. Sorry, basic principle. There will be a lot more for tech design, but here we look at a very general quality principles, very general. What is a facilities index? Facilities index is about the item difficulty. When we look at the difficulty level of the item, of the test item, we look at the proportion of correct responses to an item. The proportion or the probability of being correct, and the level of an item within a test. Let's say if we have a test item in the whole test, one test item in the test, and then we say that the probabilities of getting a correct answer for this question is 5%. And if it is 5%, also the very high score, the texture of the distribution. You remember that? If the proportion of being correct for an item is, let's say, 90%, then it could go to at 0.2 or 0.3. So most of the students would be able to get that. So that one is called the facility index. So in a question, if you have 100 questions in the test example, you have to say which question has 100% being correct, which question has 99% being correct, which question has 90% of being correct, and so on. You get the idea? That one would be able to show which item is easier than which item. And if you can do it like that, and you are doing it correctly, and then there will be only one central tendency in your test distribution score. If you make it wrong, for example, you have too many questions, which too many questions which have around 80% of being correct. So that means that those questions are actually at the same level. They are not at different level. So facility index is about basically is about the level of difficulties of the items within the test. To be able to know about the level of difficulties of the test, we look at the probabilities of being get of the probabilities of getting the correct answer for that question. Of course, more difficult question will have less lower level of probabilities of being correct. The second principle is about language or not language. We do we do language test. Whatever we say, we do language test. So in your test items, it must be about language. What we need to ensure is that we are talking about the kind of content being tested. I mean, it must be language. We test language. And the way that we can test language is we compare the responses of non-native speakers to those of native speakers of the language. We would be able to see whether it is about language or not. We will have the questions very soon. We just get the idea. So if we have a question, if we want to know whether this question is about language or not, we can give the questions to the native speakers of the language, and we give the questions to the non-native speakers of the language, to see whether both of them can answer the questions. If only one of them can answer the question, and then that question may not be about. Does it make sense to you? We look at the examples very soon. To be able to know if it is about language or not, we are going to test to see if it is about language or other cognitive issues. For example, we have the question like 1 plus 1 is dot dot dot. Then here is A is the 1, B is 2, C 3, D 4. Okay. Is it about language? You sure? Who does not know about 1 plus 1 is 2? Okay, question for you. Your test includes 50 items, and all of your students can answer item 30 correctly, although it is the most difficult item of the test. Question: you have a test item that all of your Vietnamese speakers can answer correctly, but many native English speakers cannot answer it. How can you explain? You need to explain it. You need to give an example. You need to give an example.
sinh viên bỏ và sinh viên đầu tiên là sinh viên là sinh viên sinh nấu ăn tại vì không phải vừa học được nấu ăn từ mẹ chưa thật hành nhưng mà sẽ làm những gà nó sẽ đi chợ
Sao học thực chi như thịt hầm rồi học bác xã là sao?
tức là học một món nữa
Sao làm không hết?
thì em mới làm món này thì em sẽ bắt đầu còn như vậy làm
Để tôi nghĩ cái mức độ bác xã thì đây nhất sao bây giờ
những cái biết là the test includes 50 items and your student can answer ngồi nó là ngồi nó tôi đi lại mình sẽ mình hết testing the tests. You have a test item that all your ME students can answer correctly, but many native English speakers cannot answer it correctly. How can you explain it? Nó không phải dùng trong đó cả. Thì học sinh Việt Nam là những cái đứa mà bản địa nó liên quan đến đi khá hơn là có những cái kiến thức nó học nhưng không hiểu nên ví dụ như mình có thể chèn bài hát vô tiếng Việt mình cái mình thấy câu với những cái mình không biết được cái đó là bài hát thì làm sao mà như cái bài đó thì yêu cầu là điền cái từ nó có liên ngữ cảnh cái đề từ nó có liên quan music đi mà có nhiều cái chủ đề khác nữa thì nó không biết được bài hát thì anh Nhiên có thêm để mà trả lời câu hỏi đó là
cái gì ví dụ kia thì cái phải
xong một là vậy
Ê, cái câu 1 á, có là gọi là đề dễ.
nếu mà
Tức là khó nhất trong cái test. Nhưng mà nói chung là nhìn chung nó dễ. Cái gì dễ. Ờ.
it is the most difficult item of the test tức là ít cái này là cái nào vậy là 30 câu đó câu 30 là phải nhìn đọc nhầm luôn á
thầy đi
nhưng có thể là câu nó khó nhưng mà kiểu so if that answer actually considered as the most difficult of the test the student can handle it meaning that they get during the process of learning they notice challenging challenging pieces of piece of that knowledge and as a result so the test so they can handle it easily but I think for the difficult in the case of if they can answer they cannot answer that difficult question if they don't get many knowledge about that question
trường
có vụ đó
cái chat
mình đâu bị thôi
Okay, next one.
Ý là Chiết phải khâu với cái test nhưng mà ý suy với cái level của người học.
Như đây cái phone này đó. Bây giờ mình nói là if that if that item is considered the most one of the most item on test that student can or that the student can handle it, which means teacher failed to capture uh, the learning process of the student, the level the level of student.
Now let's one. Five.
No, that
So is it?
có gì sai gì đó tôi
About to answer. First question, item 12. I agree with it. Assuming that they are not eaten, we have to they are not eaten because then there's nothing. Um, then there's the I believe and it's not telling language, but something else.
Next question, I think that all of the students can answer this question because we will have the practice this question so many times, so they remember them where they remember it well.
Just that's the most difficult question.
Most people so told you told to them many times about this.
So most difficult item is in relation to all the other 49 items. Alright, this is the most difficult item. But then that is the most difficult. The test I think relation this skill is the most difficult to every other item. It's the most difficult. I have to get it.
The idea is that is very.
bây giờ sống về
The idea is the item is the most difficult from the understanding of the teacher. The teacher thinks that it is the most difficult question, but not with the student. The student,
Không có về.
whatever happens, we don't know. The teacher tell the student about the answer or whatever we don't know. That is obviously there is a misunderstanding between the a mixed evaluation between the teachers and the students. The teacher thinks that it is the most difficult, but the student thinks that it is the easy. That's what we say. So we check whether the student is like what the teacher thinks. Question number two.
Maybe test content test it's not
cái tôi
the line nó sang mà like it in this script maybe it study study on
Can answer correctly, but many 90 speakers answer. We are talking about English language for sure.
it is idiom phrase one that rarely it they use I think it is something that students have studied all the time. No.
Oh, it is an idiom that the Vietnamese people know. Oh yeah, this is an English grammar. Yes, we are talking about English grammar all the time. We're not talking about anything.
For example, the it's about the final sound for the ED. So maybe native speak English speaker do not really know how to do the correct answer, but students are introducing some.
So here so thì mới cái bài test
Cái khâu test
cái từ gọi là
ở những cái khâu chờ, có thể khâu chờ.
Biết cái phòng luôn.
Ê nói ơi.
No,
Is it because of Vinny's fun?
what does that mean?
And you can actually have most of Vinny's mind unless because they told you.
It's okay.
Quốc province capital of Việt Nam.
So So I agree that the cultural boundaries can make the native English quite difficult to make a correct answer, but most Vietnamese students can do it. For example, like for the Vietnamese song, so if we put the Vietnamese name in that sentence for the vocabulary test, so the question requires the student to understand the context to choose the correct vocabulary. So I think most of native English cannot do it, while the majority. Use this. We can give some example.
Just like what they said. What is the difference?
Huh?
We can do your test.
Who about the people
Yeah.
and
But if it's like if it's what is the capital city in Vietnam and then it's it's too hard to take other people that know about. But I say, what if they address the QTA? Not only there will be people that know about it, you all will be people that know about it. On students at QTA, the name of the remain often with it and the must be possible. But then that is about now language. Not now, it is about language. That is.
chỉ đừng nói một cái tao yêu sao hiểu ví dụ nhất cái ví dụ cái người bạn mình ấy discussion
If it has non-language content of Vietnam country, then actually many other people discuss the same level. That's number one. But now it's about English. The native speakers are in the second level.
Transcribe the IPA of single.
Native speakers I don't know about it. What are you talking about that?
to Vietnamese language
All of your Vietnamese students.
cũng được bạn thì đó rồi chỉ có
Because the question is say is about Vietnamese. Translate this sentence into Vietnamese.
Dịp câu này ra tiếng Việt. À,
bài này tao nhớ gì nó ở này
English.
yeah chị lão luôn là ra xuống
Your class includes 75 items. And 25 of them are people that you. Should you increase the score weighting of these 25 items? Well, no. Why not? Why not?
in the 25 items so for
That's the same. That's all. I said that's all the same items. The same kind of items.
no if it's for again mình đi cho trường chúng nhau hiện giờ mình trả lời lại rồi no no sao có một chiếc hình mà mấy bạn của bà có lấy đây không thấy trên đây nó cũng có lấy ra đây nè đây nè trong còn này nó bấm cái này. xong kéo về biết đâu mà ít có là rồi chỗ nào đi xong đi vừa phải đúng không vậy hả ai đi đúng rồi nhưng câu hỏi
This one, this one, whether it's now
And if we introduce more these things, probability, the percentage of achieving these items will become like even smaller, even lower. And it's hard for teachers to evaluate the students' ability.
ví dụ
It's just about 2%. If you change the score rating, it will have like
double. This is you look at the number. It's double. So 75 items. So if you double the written score rating of this item, that means that one of the 25 here, one person would get 2 points. So here, the 50 person over here, one person would get 1 point. Here, 2 points.
Wait, that's the good. If you can get, you can also move that those 2 points. Those simple process. And those points as well.
That's a lot. What's small?
hãy sẽ sống vậy tiếng Anh gì đến dữ vậy em suy nghĩ nó em
Any response?
Cái số điểm rồi cái số này thì cái bài tự nhiên nó sẽ phải cái bài đấy để test cái độ phân, test cái thiết của học sinh. Tại vì á cái điểm nó sẽ dồn lên phần khó mà nó sẽ không phản ánh được cái thực cái thực tế khả năng thực của học sinh, và cái điều này sẽ gây ra unfair. Oh. And the test is then focus on the test then reference. Students
Two patterns that you have never thought. Is it a suitable method?
No.
What is now the excellent units for the use case. All right, so you can leave one of the questions. Talk about complicated having makeup class. Sometime later in the year, that with the semester, we will need to cancel 1 week because they got an good schedule. That's why we need to do a makeup class sometimes. So I, I let you know if Friday is okay for you. Okay. If Friday is okay for you, well, not before you do that. It must be.
Yes.
So we will have then we can up to Tuesday and
Yes.
then
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So if the scores distribution of the students goes into this kind of distribution, it is a good test. That means the test can help you to understand who is better than. And this one is called the normal distribution. So a test which aim to result in normal distribution is called the normal reference parameters. Alright? So we go to the term again. Normative approach is the approach used in the testing which can generate such a kind of score distributed. You heard about the term before? No? Did you pass the research methodology? Yes, recommended. Just number one. What are the assumptions? No idea. What are the assumptions of qualitative? So don't tell the people that you have already completed the research methodology. Very basic understanding of social phenomena. When you, if you do a piece of research using quantitative approach, how many participants are question? What? How many? Hả?
Nhỏ cũng thế giới thì cũng thế giới thì physical appearance.
Like that, if the majority will be final on the average invoice percentage. If it is more handsome, then it is considered handsome.
So you don't compare him to the people that you know. Compare him to the average. What is the average?
Average is the majority, the level of majority of the global levels. I know shape.
Where is your average from?
From this the majority of people I know.
So you compare him to the people that you know, but you said you need to know people that. You say that you compare me to the average of the people. So I started with average people. So that average people is when the majority of people that you know. But I looked at before that, I asked you whether you compare that one and the other one to the people that you know, you say no. You compare to the average, you don't compare to the people that you know. Sao phải thế?
Nó chết mình chờ. Tự nhiên thành điện. Cái đọc như vậy không mà cái đó tới rồi.
When you see a person, you say that, oh, this one is really handsome. What does that mean? That means that you have never seen someone like that. Or you rarely see someone. That means that it's here. If they stay here, and then it is very, very handsome. If it stays here, then really, really ugly. And the people that you often see, they are here. It's normal. Alright? So, what is normal distribution? Normal distribution is if you have 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, it doesn't matter how many people that you have. If it is a normal situation, and then there should be a lot of people, they are unmuted, and some people are really bad, and some people are really good. That one is a normal. So if you conduct a piece of study and you want to know about, for example, the students' learning motivation, how many students that you need to ask to be able to get a good sample? Wrong. Wrong. What? You need to get a number of the students so that it can fall into this distribution. That one is the correct one. So it doesn't matter how many students you have, but if the sample that you get is not normalized, then that is not the quantitative. Because quantitative research says all the phenomena around the world are normalized. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are as a teacher. It doesn't matter. You can teach very well, you teach very badly, nobody cares about that. It doesn't matter how you are. When you go and teach, what happens? Some students will really, really like you. Some students will really, really like you. The rest they don't care. They don't care you, they don't like you. This is what the social phenomenon is about. It doesn't matter which class you go to teach. In your class, there will be a few students who are super good, and a few students who are horrible. The rest, they are not good. It doesn't matter which class you go to. Why is it like that? Why? Can you answer that? Why? I think it's, as you said it, social phenomenon. Now, you answer that before. Because we compare them. When you compare students to one another, you will see someone better than someone. So normalization is based on the notion that human interpretation of all social phenomena is based because we compare them. So we say, oh, this one is more hardworking, this one is lazier. Even though the one you say, the one that you say lazy They're not lazy. So why are they lazy? That's why because other people are more hardworking. It does not because they are lazy. You go to the room, you see that guy, oh, this guy is very handsome. Because people are ugly. If other people are not ugly, then I'm not very handsome. That is what we say normalization. Humans' interpretation of the social phenomenon is based on comparison. If we see something that we rarely see, so it must be either very good. You can ask yourself whether you are rich or poor. Why are you rich or poor? It doesn't matter how much money you have now. It's not important. How much money you have, it does not matter. You are rich or you are poor, it depends on the others. It depends on others' money. If they if if they are rich and then you are poor. So if you are rich and then they are poor. So you are poor or you are rich. It's not because of you. Because of the money that you have. You are handsome or you are beautiful or you are ugly. It's not because of you. It's because of the others. Agree with that? Qualitative approach. The criteria reference I know. People are different from each other. We cannot compare that. That's why I don't quantitative. They said that we cannot compare people to one another because each individual is unique, different, totally different from each other. But here in the quantitative approach, I know people are very much beautiful. It doesn't matter which country you live in. You live in Vietnam, or you live in USA, or you live in Canada. It doesn't matter which country it is, whether it's a poor country, or it's a small country, or a big country, it doesn't matter. But there are countries where 10% of people who are super rich, and there are 2% of people who are really poor. It doesn't matter which country it is. Why? Because you compare the rich with the poor. That's the reason. So this one is on the normal distribution. I go back to the it is a concept. I go back to the uh, I will explain the negatively skew or positively skew later on. But what I just explained to you is what we call normal distribution. So if you would like to investigate if you want to investigate a phenomenon, you need to ensure that that phenomenon is normal. What does that mean? That means that if you do not look at the whole phenomenon, that means that the normal phenomenon, you are looking only one part of the phenomenon. The phenomenon is only complete when it is normal. So if you want to investigate the student's learning motivation, and then the learning motivation that you got, they are always all of them are have a very high level of motivation. So that in that situation, you only look at one section of the distribution. It's not the whole phenomenon. Because if it is a whole phenomenon, you need to be able to get the whole picture of that. That means that the normal sample. Get it corrected. Maybe that's not only thing. So let's say if you give the students a test, if you give the students a test, it is a non-reference test. And all students, and your students, of course, the test goes from 0 to 10 points, right? And all of your students, they get from 5 to 10. So the phenomenon that you are investigating is normal or not. You understand the question? You give the students a test or a survey or whatever. And if the survey's rating should go from 1 to 10. And all the people in your survey, they got the rating from 5 up to 10. From 1 to 5, nobody rating there. The question is, do you have a normal sample of the phenomenon? Yes or no? No? Okay. How can you make it normal? Hmm? But they all got from 5 to 10.
So from higher level students.
That's the student that you work on. So you change the participant. Ah. So you change the test. The test is bad. But you need the test already.
I think one solution can be reselecting the range from 5 to 10 to check whether it matches the correlation or not. Instead of taking the samples from 1 to 10, you can check if the 5 to 10, the result we have, it fit the paradigm or not. If it fits, then it is possible to fit that percent.
Yeah. The idea. So in that situation, the minimum score is a 5. Minimum score is not 1. So the range is not from 1 to 10. The range is from 5 to 10. So the minimum score is 5. The maximum score is a 10. The central tendency is 7.5. Not the central tendency is 5. 5 is the minimum score. Anyone? That is to talk about the sampling to achieve the normal distribution of the sample that you are investigating. In the criterion testing, criterion reference is exactly the same like the way that people talk about qualitative approach. So they say that now it does, we're not comparing anyone. What we do is we try to see whether that person can achieve that level and that's it. So for criterion reference, test, it is perfectly okay if all the students get a 10. The test is correct. If all students get a 4, all students get 5, all students get 7, that is still correct. But for norm reference testing, if all the students get 5, all students get 7, all students get 10, for example, it is a bad test. One, one. Because it cannot tell us who is better than who. The norm reference test is to understand who is better than who. If all of them got the same score, so the test fails because it does not tell us who is better than who. But with the criterion reference test, that's okay. The criterion test is about everyone here, level 1, everyone, level 2. Discuss question. Criterion reference testing is not supposed to provide options for learners to choose. Criterion. However, in reality, standardized tests always include a lot of multiple choice questions. What is that? I need to explain to you the first statement. Criterion reference testing is not supposed to provide options for learners to choose. What does that mean? Because if we are testing to see whether they can do this or can do that, right? So if we give them the options, that means they will be able to know how to do it. You get the idea? If we give them a test and we give them the options like multiple choice test, we give them options. If we give them options, they will be able to choose it. If they can choose it, and then we will choose it that they can do that. That's right. Because the purpose of the test is to see whether they can do it. If you want to know whether they can do it, we need to ask them to do it, not to give them option to choose. But then in reality, standardized tests always include a lot of multiple choice. Why is it? You get the question? For example, I say that to be at level B1, to be at level B1, they need to be able to figure out the meanings of the words in a context. Okay? So figure out the meanings of the words in a context is what they need to do. So we need to pick up a word in a context and ask them what does this word mean. And then that's okay. If they can say the meaning of the word, that's correct. That means that they can figure out the meaning of the word. But here now, what people do is they give a question. The A, B, C, D. So what people do is they choose A, B, C, D. It does not mean that they can do it. They can only choose. They can only choose what is true, but they can actually do it. Why is it like that?
Justin. Là cái nào là bà nói cái standard test hả? Hình như cái này đâu có. Cái này là đang nói về criterion different assessment. This Vậy là bà hiểu rồi. Là bà hiểu được chút chút luôn. Ê,
thì đó là cái ví dụ liên quan này, cái gì vậy? Cái level liên quan này.
Use the correct answer 3 times in a row is roughly 2 on 100. And 4 in a row is about 5 in 1,000 participants. So the margin of error is acceptable in some means. So the standardized test sometimes you the last one is not relevant.
I give you the example. Do you know the meaning of the word car? Instead of saying, what does the word mean? And then you need to write down the meaning. And then at the time I will say, oh, okay, you know, you. But instead of doing that, I say, what does the word mean? I, then B, sẽ hơi, C, hay I. So you didn't know about the meaning of the words, but because you see the option, you can figure out the meaning of it. So the standard is to test whether people can do it or not. If we ask them that whether they can do it or not, they cannot do it. But because we give them options, they can do it. So the test does not reflect the levels of performance that we want to have. Because when we say what does the word car mean? Then we wait hundreds of thousands of answers, possible answers. But then when we say four answers, the people they can figure out the answer by comparing the options that they can do the answer. So that when they choose the correct answer, it does not mean that they have the abilities to know the meaning. So it takes us to the problems of the test issue. So we know very clearly, or people know very clearly that there are many test items there, but people still use it because of the reasons other than the testing itself. In this situation, maybe it's a problem of money issue. They use multiple choice test because it can save a lot of money. It's not about the reliability of the tests. The curve and score meaning. We will look at it. We have for example, we have this score distribution. The first one is the score, the second is the number, the test taker. So in this test, we have 15 students get 1 point, 30 students get 2 points, and 60 students get 5 points for them. That is the score distribution. And then when we put on the scores together, we come to this one. This is the distribution of the scores. The 1 point 15 students, 2 point 20 students. And then when we put all on the end point of these scores together, we come to the line. We come to a line like this. This one is called the curve. All right. The concept is simple. Now we look at the meaning of the curve. Where we have those four distributions like this, and then we put them together, we have this graph, and the curve is like this. We put them all together. What does this curve tell you? You give the students an exam, and then you have this curve. What kind of conclusion can you have? I don't know. Typically, we have three types of curve. The first one on the left, we say that this curve is positively skewed. The one on the right, the green one, this one we say is negatively skewed. And the one in the middle is called normal distribution. So we got the term positively skewed before. Positively skewed means flat. The central tendency is to the left. The negatively skewed means the central tendency is going to the right. When it is normally distributed, that means that the central tendency is in the middle. When the curve is positively skewed, that means that more students get lower score. When it is negatively skewed, that means that more students get high score. And when it is normally distributed, the scores are equally distributed in the population. Now we need to look at the normal distribution to understand what it means by normal distribution. As I showed you before, when it is normal distribution, that means that the central tendency is in the middle, and then the distribution is in two. Here, very good students here, and very bad students here, around 2%. So if you have a test using non-reference paradigm, if you have a test using non-reference paradigm, and the scores move to one side of the distribution, that is a bad test. If you have a criterion reference test and the score moving to the right, what conclusion you have? Say again. If you have a non-reference paradigms test and the scores are most of the scores are moving toward one side, it is a bad test. If you have a criterion reference paradigm test, the scores moving toward the right, what conclusion you have? It is a good test. It's a good test. Now, the scores moving to the right.
This is our consideration.
Yeah. Criterion test.
Useful actually
What does that mean?
uh also to get the sample they can reach the
So what does that mean?
this is the
That means that the code is successful. or the learning, the learning during the course is successful. The numbers here will be able to tell you the proportions of the scores within a test. So if you use a non-reference testing paradigm for a test, you can predict the possibility of achieving a score in your test. What does that mean to you? I say again, if you give the students a non-reference test, and if the test is good, that means that the test can generate a normal distribution of the scores, and then you would be able to have the prediction of the possibilities of achieving a score. What does that mean? That means in your test, only around 2% of the students can get a 10. Right? And then around 2% of students can get 0 point or 1 point. And then the probabilities of getting 6 points is 34%. You get the idea? That is why the people interpret the probabilities of getting a score in a test. So even before taking the test, for all of you, before taking a known preference test, you know very clearly that you have 2% of achieving very high score. You know very clearly that you have 2% of achieving very low score. And you know that you have around 34% of achieving 6, 7 points. Does it make sense to you? So that is the why that people interpret the normal distribution. So here, I put here one people in. So here like 2 here. So did you know that here around 2% people can achieve this kind of score, and around 2% people can achieve this. The curve of normal distribution is called a bell curve. If you read the books and this is a bell curve, you know what it means. Bell curve is like a bell. Because the curve is like a bell, and then they call it bell curve. If we observe scores and normal case, the mean score should split the distribution is called it to have. The curve of normal distribution can tell what the probabilities they have, a test taker would have, the score they have. As I said before. So before taking the test, you know very clearly that you have only 2% of opportunity to get 10 points. Well, you know that only 2% of probabilities to get the 1 point. Very difficult. Very difficult to get 1 point. But then people can still do it. So what it means is here, you know very well that you have 2% of probability to get 9 of 10 points. Alright, that's it. That is the explanation of the form and then the prediction of the points in the exam. Now the meaning of the curve. This is the score distribution of the unit test. If you high school graduation examination is at 15. Yeah. You see that the central tendency is around 2.5. 2.5 is the central tendency of the score in the English test. And it goes like this. Then here goes this one. All right. Conclusion. Can you say about this test? So the third P is positive thinking. Okay. What conclusion can you make?
Cái kiểu như HSG là gì? Xin lỗi, đúng không? Cái là đi theo đúng rồi, xin lỗi. Học sinh giỏi là kiểu nhiều để tìm cái này mà kiểu là xét kiểu người của mình rất hai trường hợp luôn, hoặc là cái no reference test, cái là nhiều criteria reference nhau. Hỏi tiền là đi ai cho con cái này đi coi để xử lý được cái sự an individual. Cái bài thi này ở đây mình thấy là có cái năm 222117912 là gì, là số người đúng không? Vậy cái bài thi này chứng tỏ là cái bài thi này là nếu mà bài thi đều là bài thi sinh nhật đó, tức là cái bài thi này xin lỗi luôn dùng để dùng để dùng để đo lường là học sinh này tốt hơn học sinh nào, thì có nghĩa là nếu mà theo cái sự phân phối điểm của cái code này á, thì cái bài examination này là một cái bài thành công, đúng không? Tại vì trong đó có 52 học sinh không điểm và bao nhiêu 15 học sinh là 10 điểm, Trong tổng số đó thì cái normal distribution là nó sẽ rơi vào từ 2 đến 5 điểm phụ. Ủa? Một năm điểm ra.
Sao cái này nó bên đỏ, cái này nó bự hơn. Cái
Cảm ơn.
2,25
Tôi cho ai 2,5 là cao. Số tròn.
Tính
Số tròn. Đặt. Ai rồi sao bà? Sao tôi thấy gì đi đúng gì tôi có đọc
được chưa đâu.
hết gì đúng không? Rồi sao? Tại cái bạn mình chắc biết xét là hay để thành công không? Đây là sao?
Sao? Có thể biến được cái range.
Thì cái range là từ 0 đến 10 điểm đúng không? Bây giờ cho 25% thì khoan để coi nè. 52 đứa và 15 đứa. Đây tổng số của nhà. 2, 3, 4, 5 đi. 7, 8, 9, 12, 12, 120, 170, 170, 240. Cái này là 85 rồi. 80 với 8, 160, 240, còn 180 là ngay. Chắc phải là nghèo quá. Nghèo. Không, em không đi rồi không khoảng 4.000 đến 5.000 đứa tham gia trò chuyện này. Gì? Thì cái đó là được 450.000, khoảng đó 450.000 đến 5.000 đứa, trong đó 500 đứa là từ 0 điểm.
One until then cannot be that. But this is criterion is that criterion criterion. So the criterion as it's actually but I think English students most
It's the regulation. You said that most of the students didn't pass the exam. My question is, what is the pass for? You don't know. You say five? Five the pass score of the high school graduate examination? You sure? Very pass score, and you said that many students didn't pass.
As I remember in 2016, for the English, they only have to be over one score pass the test. So
Very few people actually fail. It is one source here. So here, very few students fail. 79, 11, plus 2, plus 52. Very few students. You said that. It went from 1 point, and then after that is 2 points, and then 2.5 or something like that, and stuff like that. Any conclusion that you can make? You said that the education is bad. This is only the English language test. Since the English language test only, you cannot say that the education is bad. And you said that the teaching is bad because most of the students fail. What? Around 200, less than 200 students fail in the whole country. What did you say that it's bad? Huh? Really? No comment? No conclusion? Okay. That's good. Happy with that? What about this one? 2017. The central Tennessee is a little bit better. It moved to 3.4. Around 3.4. It's where the central Tennessee is. And then 2018, it is around 3. The central Tennessee is around 3. Twenty 2019 is around 3.2. 2020, the central Tennessee is around 3.4. 2021,
Chăm cái năm tôi thấy nó lạ, thấy nó là bất thường.
Student study, yeah, this examination is really easy.
if it is easy, it will be negative with you, right? But no, still, the central Tennessee is not 24 but it is practice. Because not the COVID, they don't like that. What is the problem of the test? Huh? Is it a test to central Tennessee?
Thế bà nghĩ sao?
Well, the test is it a to
Bà nghĩ sao?
Làm sao?
Bà nghĩ sao vậy cái bảo?
Cũng có một số học sinh là điểm thấp.
Ừ.
Ý là có một số học sinh là điểm thấp. Về một số khác thì đề cho đề dễ. Và một số khác là đề dễ nhưng mà phải điểm thấp. Nó thường là cái mức độ học sinh học tiếng Anh chưa tốt.
So, questions. Whatever it is, when the curve is like this, is easy to understand, right? So it can be, it is not normally distributed, but it is positively skewed or negatively skewed. But here, come to here, is two central tendencies. It's weird. Why is it like that? When it is positively skewed or negatively skewed, that means that the test fails to understand the majority's competence, the competence of the majority of students, right? So if it is, for example, if it is positively skewed like this, so the it would be correct if the poles here are collapsed. All the poles here is collapsed, so that the central tendencies would become like this. Okay? The same thing. If it is like this, or the central tendency is like this, so if if these scores are combined, and then the central tendencies would become like this. What about this one? Y has two central tendencies. What can I tell you? Huh? Is it before your year or one year before you? Okay. And you don't remember anything about that? Your year is here.
cái này dễ, cái số lượng vượt thấp rất nhiều.
It's not so bad before, but it's also bad. It's bad, but it's not so bad. Okay, what's wrong? No, I don't remember. It was a year. It was the year where many government officials went to jail. Level. Four. Oh, so.